I'm Ed Magoni, and this is Zach Osterman, and we're standing here in the Cook Hall. Just finished up with the AMC Adidas May Classic tournament here in Bloomington. We just took in a final game there between Eric Gordon's AllStars 16-under team, who took the title. And Zach, what were your thoughts on the performance of Eric Gordon's AllStars 16-under team this weekend?
Well, you know, they talked about this after the game, their coach especially, but they had a game yesterday where they fell down pretty deep behind and rallied pretty furiously. It looked like they were out last night, came back, won the game, and today just kind of rolled through people. I mean, they won that one by 20. I think they won one earlier by at least like 15. And they won this one. This was an immediate turnaround game, too. This was I think they got like 20 minutes off to between their semifinal and their final game. So, you know, everything was working for him. Zach Irvin was hitting shots today all weekend, really. So was Colin Hartman, IU commit. Devin Davis continued to like his energy, like what he brings with his athleticism and explosiveness. He's got long arms. He jumps high. He hustles. He makes all the little plays. Made some great passes today, I thought. And then Darius Latham, the big guy inside for them, just had a great day. He's actually a pretty good defensive tackle prospect from North Central. So I think for what I understand, his future is likely in football. But he bossed the middle today. He was very assertive down low, and not even in the championship game, but just all day and maybe even all weekend. So it was a good after last weekend. Saw them go out early, gave up a big lead to Indiana Elite South, Dan Dockich coach team, and go out a little earlier than expected in Fort Wayne. It was a big weekend to come back for them.
Speaking of going out early, I think a lot of people were surprised to see Indiana Elite Team Indiana with the class of 2012 IU players' commitments on that go out so soon this morning to Baylor.
Yeah.
Can you comment on that game?
Yeah, you know, it was. I don't know enough about Baylor to say it was an upset. I don't want to disrespect anybody. They played Indiana Elite really well. They were able to. They had the right personnel to kind of take away Hunter Perea's sort of fluid movement in the lane. You know, they made him a little bit more stationary in the lane. They didn't stop service into him, but made him more stationary, which is not his game. They hit a lot of threes. You know what I mean? Really kept him in it, and at times when Elite started to kind of push back, they'd come down and hit a three. Some were contested, some weren't. But, you know, I mean, sometimes you also just catch a team on a day, good shooters, and you just can't seem to force them to miss. And Elite, you know, they particularly did not seem to handle the ball all that well. So, you know, I've seen them play just about every tournament other than Denver. This spring, they're better than the way they played today. Much better. You know, Jeremy Hollowell admits he's still a little rusty, and I think you know the bigger. Wes Scott even said this yesterday on Twitter. You know, the bigger hurdle for Jeremy Hollowell probably wasn't coming back yesterday. It was waking up this morning, because he's going to be stiff. He's going to be sore. The injuries, even if they're healing, are going to be bothered. And Ron Patterson had prom last night. You know, they haven't quite found that groove yet, because other than this morning, the only time they were all together, all four of them, was at Indy Ball, because Farrell missed the trip to Denver, and Hollowell got injured in Denver. Peter Jerkin's still not going to be back until at least July. So, you know, they've been playing a team. They've been playing quite shorthanded throughout the spring. So, you know, I think today was just a bad game. You know, everybody has them. So
no, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that the Twitter fallout after that game.
Not everybody has those.
Ron Patterson obviously sent out a tweet that said he needs a new team quickly. That's not verbatim, but it's the gist of it. And Yogi also tweeted that you know, he was getting tired of losing.
Yeah.
Can you just comment on that? And, you know, obviously it set off a firestorm among the IU fan base, but
yeah,
maybe a little bit of overreaction there.
Yeah, you know, I mean, that's the danger of Twitter. And anybody who follows me knows. I mean, it's stream of consciousness. It's just stuff that enters your mind, and the danger of it is when you're 16 or 17 years old. You know, I mean, I'm glad Twitter wasn't around when I was that age. I mean, because you're still learning, you're still growing, you're still maturing. I think sometimes we probably look at these kids, we look at them a little bit too much like adults because of the pressure that's on them and because of the attention they get. And it can be a dangerous thing to kind of mix that with this main line into a kid's thoughts, and sometimes, like I said, I think we just forget that these kids are still kids. And the other thing I said right after it happened, Patterson came off the court, he didn't go through the handshake line, he took off his jersey and he just left, and then he sent out that tweet, but the thing I said was, that attitude is not a wholly bad one for a program that's trying to turn around the results that Indiana's had over the last few years. I mean, you in a lot of ways, did he handle it right? No. But in a lot of ways, you want somebody who hates losing that much. It was an irrational, emotional response, maybe. It's something that I think we were probably all guilty of a lot when we were younger. And maybe I know I'm certainly still guilty of sometimes now. It's getting loud. It's getting loud behind us. But at the end of the day, I'd be honestly surprised. I don't know if Patterson's switching teams or anything like that, but I would be honestly surprised if the anger had not subsided and the whatever had not blown over by the time he got home. Because that's how quickly stuff changes. 17-year-old kids skip from one thought to the next so quickly. He did. I will throw this out there. Kellen Thomas, who plays with Indiana Elite One, which was sort of Patterson's old team, tweeted something about welcome back. Bus 34 is Patterson's Twitter handle. There's also no guarantee that that's factually accurate. Patterson and Thomas are close, but it certainly seems a little bit of a mountain out of a molehill kind of thing right now. So, and we'll see.
Well, we all know that Jaquan Lyles sent out a similar text last week after that game, and he's still with Air Gordon.
That's where he is, yeah. Right.
So, that may or may not anything come of that. We'll see. But anyone else in the prospects that I was looking at from this tournament that really stood out to you this weekend?
Yeah, I really like Davis, like I said, and I've seen him a couple times now, and I really like just his versatility and all his tools and how he's a hustle guy, although sometimes I think his hustle does kind of get him into some injury trouble. There's a guy that's popped up on the radar. His name's Demetrius Jackson. He's from Mishawaka, goes to Mishawaka Marion, plays for NBA Select. He's a point guard in the 2013 class. That's a slot that it seems like Indiana's pretty high on filling. I really liked his game. He had a strong dribble, assertive, ran his team very well, made good decisions. I wouldn't say, I think that the gold standard to compare point guards to right now for Indiana fans is Yogi Ferrell, or Jordan Hulls. He's not quite those kinds of players. But I think really just kind of a prototypical point guard. He's strong and he's going to get stronger. He's probably at least about 6'1", 6'2". And he was a guy who it never felt like he was rushing. He always found his way to the ball, and you especially noticed late in games and late in close games, his team always made sure he got the ball. He was always the guy that the ball went to initiate the offense. But at the same time, it never felt like he was pushing. It never felt like he was rushing. His team lost a really close game toward the end of yesterday, which was disappointing because I was hoping to see more of him because I really like his game. I know he's close with Notre Dame. He's got an interesting story, a really interesting backstory. But I don't know that there's a really accelerated process there right now. And I think IU is in, at least has a good chance to build a relationship with him. So.
One other team I'd like to mention before we call it a podcast, the Space Indy Heat team with Trey Lyles and James Blackman Jr. Obviously, they seem to be on a collision course with Air Gordon All-Star 16 under in the game we just watched, but they lost in the semifinal Blackman and Lyles were banged up, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what happened there. I'll be honest. Bouncing between different teams, you just kind of, in the short term, you just kind of hear, oh, they're not here, and that's what it is. From what little I saw, they played pretty well without him. I like Trevon Blewett's game. I like his quick shot release. He's confident, but he doesn't seem to make. He doesn't just take a ton of shots. P.J. Thompson is a point guard that's impressed me a lot in the 2014 class. Goes to Brebeuf. He's got to grow somewhat, but he runs that team very well. You can see they're much better with him, sort of controlling things than without him. But without Lyles, whose talent has been stated many times and not overstated certainly, and Blackman, who I think is going to be a pretty special scorer. Those are two pretty big holes to fill. I mean, they've got 4 guys playing up on that team, and all 4 of them start. So that sort of tells you something about the value of all 4 of those guys: Blewett, Thompson, Lyles, and Blackman. And to not have 2 of them, it's going to be a tough row to hoe, I guess. So
I guess we do need to talk about one more thing. Mitch McGary impressed a lot of people this weekend.
Yeah. His
transformation since he went out to Brewster Academy from Chesterton, Indiana. He's really grown and really impressed this weekend. And can you just comment on his stats with Indiana's recruiting?
He's a hoss. He's big. I mean, we're talking 30, 40 pounds of muscle. And I hadn't seen much of him before this weekend. But, I mean, everybody who's seen him, I mean, I can tell you standing next to him, he's got a college-ready body. And his game, would obviously need refining, but in terms of the basics, he has a pretty college-ready game in terms of taking it up strong, fundamentals, things like that. I know his coach is still working with him on focus, and on trying to get him to kind of focus on making the right decisions, particularly on the court in transition. Something he talked about with us is 2-hand rebounds, 2-hand passes when we talked to his coach. As far as interest with Indiana, he kind of gave a weird double answer. He said that he hadn't talked to Tom Crean in a while, but Indiana was still showing interest. So, they're out, but they're in. It was kind of a weird answer. He certainly talked like he likes Indiana. He says he has friends down here. He's from Chesterton, so it would be, closer than, he listed off a ton of schools: Arizona, Texas A&M, Texas, Dayton's in there, I guess, Purdue, IU, Marquette. But, he talked about the idea. He's been here several times. He knows the city. He likes the city. He likes the campus. He likes the school. It sounded like IU was even trying to see if they could get him to stay in the class of 2011, which is where he originally was. But he's reclassified to 2012, and that's where he's staying. But it seems like IU certainly still has a shot with him. The question is kind of where do they fall with him right now? And like I said, that was kind of a weird double answer of I haven't talked to Tom Crean in a while, but I'm still hearing from Indiana. So read between the lines. I guess reading between the lines would be tough because they're quite blurred with an answer like that. But I think Indiana's still involved.
All right. Well, that's all we've got for today. We're here at Cook Hall closing things down. It's for Zach Osterman and Ahmed Magoni. Thank you for watching.